get that started. All right, good. I think we're set now.
Well, great. Great to see you all again. Do you remember, did we meet in January or February, or it was like a long time ago?
It was a long time ago, a long, long time ago.
Yeah, and so since then, we were able to work with Jennifer to sort of establish a scope of work for working with you on kind of educational and capacity goals. And I'm just going in, I'm trying to go into share mode yet, or present mode. And yeah, so thanks to Jennifer for working that out with us. And what our goal is to support partnership and capacity building towards the Lake Wyola watershed-based goals. We've put in the scope that we can hold up to two outreach events or education projects. So could be one outreach event, one education project. It could be two education projects with no events, or it could be two events. In which we are focused on building an understanding and the buy-in among all Lake Wyola stakeholders, including the LWA and representatives of the town and town committees. That we, to those stakeholders, communicate the findings of the watershed-based plan, communicate the value of taking a whole systems approach to mitigating damage to roads and untreated stormwater reaching the lake. Those are sort of the two main goals we have to work with, although I know there are some other minor goals related to Lake Wyola, and then communicate why partnership among all Lake Wyola stakeholders is necessary for substantial improvements. So why does Lake Wyola Association need to be on the same page as the town and town committees, and why do the residents need to be on the same page as everyone else? So, what we've brainstormed so far is that we could obviously put together educational materials such as a slide presentation, brochures, like a little 2-pager of information, maps that illustrate kind of how the whole system is working and where kind of sediment is particularly impacting the lake, or where there are lots of opportunities to trap stormwater, or understand fluvial conditions, fluvial erosion better. And or we could be doing some in-person stuff. The FERCog has a stream table. I don't know if any of you have interacted with UMass's stream table that their people in their like hydrology department, like Christine Hatch has. So it's sort of like the size of a what is that one where you there's a little ball and there's little soccer people that you
Foosball.
spin. Yeah, like a
Foosball.
foosball, a little bit bigger than a foosball table. Like yeah, maybe a little bit smaller than a pool table.
Soccer people.
Yeah. And it gets set up. And it's mostly filled with sand, and there are lots of little like miniaturized objects that represent houses and people and roads and natural features. And it's a little bit canted, and so it has water starting at the top and making a river. And then you can sort of interact with the sand and you can interact with the features and the kind of edges of the existing channel to manipulate the channel and see what the consequences are. So like it can show you if you build a bridge with a span too small, after a couple minutes, you can watch that bridge blow out. So that's a fun option. We've done a field walk with you before. We would be happy to do that again. And yeah, mostly those are just some ideas to get us starting to think, and we're here to hear what your ideas are.
Great.
So actually this is where I thought the discussion part could start. You know your town and what kind of all the different perspectives are that need to be brought together and heard and educated, and who needs to kind of be able to hear from who. And so I wanted to hear your thoughts on effective communication. Some of the questions I had was, what would be the task force role in kind of bringing this message? How do we communicate effectively with all the people that you want to engage? So when we did the watershed-based plan, we got a lot of feedback that if people were renters around the lake, we hadn't necessarily done a good job of reaching out to them. So I don't know who you want to, whether you want to think about like targeting certain demographics. And then we worked with Jennifer and your new town administrator on a grant application that we submitted to the Rural Development Fund. And I don't know, like, I think that did a really good job of making the case for why there needs to be a whole systems approach to understanding stormwater damage and other sedimentations. Stormwater impacts and other sedimentation like sources around the lake. And I don't know if you all think that that's a tool you could use somehow, or like distill that message somehow, or even communicate that have it help you communicate that you're really trying to start with understanding the whole kind of hydraulic and hydrologic and fluvial geomorphic system prior to making investments in like best management practices and other infrastructure. So
you want to hear from
Oh.
folks, how they,
yeah,
okay,
I imagine you have ideas. Oops.
or
And
questions?
hopefully I can type into this.
Yeah, let me let others start. Charlene.
I'm intrigued by that UMass stream table. Is that portable?
Yeah,
It is.
I mean, it takes some setup. It's sort of like a yeah, it takes some setup and then the sand has to dry. So but it's very portable. That's what we have it for. We're not setting it up at the FERCOG offices at the at the train station in Greenfield. We are bringing it into communities.
Because I can, I come from an education background, and having students learn about this through, I think it's great if you have a problem set up and then they see the results of it. That would be such a great learning experience for them. I wonder if it's something we could tie in with the public school in Shutesbury, and that would be a great beginning for our young people. And if they live around the lake, even better. But it's always good to learn information, even if you're not presently on a lake. And certainly conditions that alter that are that you can actually see by making adjustments to this table are great.
Do you think, I like to play with stream tables as a grown-up. What I'm wondering, Charlene, is and I think, reaching out to the elementary school is a great idea. Do you think, is there room in the association schedule to have an activity for families, for example?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I can look at the schedule now if you want. Let me go get it and just see where there's some openings.
And Tamsin, do you think if that's kind of a short time frame to put it together between now and really a lot of families start heading back toward their school lives at the middle of August, I guess, or end of August, but is that too short of a time frame to try and put something together for families that live right around the lake?
Great question. I think that we had envisioned that we do some of this outreach during the summer. So I was anticipating, it depends on how big of an event you're wanting to put on, and how many details we have to figure out before we can publicize it, and then whether that feels like enough lead time to be publicizing. But it sounds like, just logistically speaking, you would want to have something in order to catch families. You would want to have an event by mid-August,
Is that
or
about right, Charlene? When
third week
Yeah,
of August?
The last official Lake Wyola event on the calendar is the 9th of August. So
Okay.
anything after that is open.
Okay.
But you
And-
want to do it as close to the 9th, only because a lot of people pack up and leave. If you're trying to get families who are still here, the later you wait, the faster. It'll be harder to have those families here because people go home and move out.
Yeah.
And I have a question too
Big
about,
problems.
is this stream table activity, for instance, having a kind of a short presentation of some of your findings of, like current conditions around stormwater and sedimentation, why it's something that we all should pay attention to, and then follow up with the stream table activity? I mean, is there a way to pair those up so that there's an information component and kind of a play component?
I think that's really smart. Yeah, I think a presentation would pair well with using the stream table. I don't know if you would wanna, because there can be a stream table demonstration, but then I would say only like maybe 6 people can really play with it at a time without feeling like somebody else isn't like messing up their vision for the
Oh,
stream table. So if there's even something else, like I think it's often a good activity to have going while you have other activities going, like a
Oh, yeah.
meal or yeah, other stations or something.
Yeah, that's neat. Yeah, that idea of stations, like a kind of a stormwater erosion festival,
Yeah, right.
like the beer tasting party. Is that, Tom, is your hand up?
Yeah, I thought I would jump in now. I've been hopping around the stream table limited stuff on the UMass website. I sent everyone on this call right now an email just a minute ago with one link to give you a picture of what it looks like. I also found another link where the Fort River Watershed Association hosted a river cleanup. And the River Smart Communities was there with a hands-on interactive river processes table, the stream table. So I think exactly what you're talking about, maybe something with multiple activities. I don't know if a cleanup, I know Lake Wyola might already have a cleanup day I've done, but
So it's also possible to think about bringing the stream table to an existing like Wyola Association event, if it's compatible.
Anything's compatible. Our more popular potluck dinner is coming up this weekend, so that's obviously too short of notice. And then we have an ice cream social on July 19th. And there are doggy cones available. We also have our second annual membership meeting, and that's where we get a larger crowd of people on the 9th of August.
Okay.
And then also that evening is our August potluck, but that potluck doesn't draw as many people as our first one that's coming up. So might be a good thing to have at the annual membership meeting, but I don't know. People, the meeting is very structured. So are you thinking people could get up and down? And because one time we ran, what was it, that small business thing right after it, and it grabbed a lot of people. So this, I think
That's a great idea. I love that idea, like right afterwards, something
Yeah.
that's set up with a few activities. Maybe there's something that is around, you know, because one of the things that FERCog provided in their report was what can individual property owners do? You know, so larger scale, here's the whole dynamics of what FERCog has found, and then a table with what individual property owners might do, and the stream table, and just try and hit a lot of different points. And if we could do it out in the outside of the community hall there after the meeting, everybody would already be there. You'd have a set crowd already.
I like the ice cream social time because it'd probably draw more people to get ice cream.
Well,
that
that's
your
a good idea
weakness.
too.
Darlene, do you remember when, or do you have the info when the Weed Watcher meetup is?
They had to change it because it was the 9th, which was in conflict with the second meeting. So I believe they changed it to the 10th. I know they did. It's the 10th.
Sunday, the August 10th.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, what was that?
There's a Weed Watcher duo who does like an education section at the Lake Wyola, correct me if I'm wrong, at the Lake Wyola clubhouse. And I think they also go out to the lake. I think it might
They
be
have
2
people
parts.
go in kayaks, right?
Yeah, I don't know if, I thought I heard they start at the clubhouse with some sort of like.
I've never gone
poster
to
session.
it, so I don't.
Oh, okay.
I used to be on that group, on the Weed Watchers group. And they had 2 different years, not sequential years, where Mass DCR came with samples of invasive plants.
Hmm,
And that was at the association hall, but every other time
That's what I'm
we've just
thinking of.
met, you know, in kayaks and
Uh-huh.
used their materials and what we learned from them at these 2 different sessions. So it's mostly not at the clubhouse.
I'm thinking with Joe though, like the ice cream social or like the Weed Watch or something more of a social event tied with it
Mhm.
might be more attractive, appealing. I don't know.
I tend to agree with that, and I'm leaning more toward the Weed Watchers because that ties in nicely with the work that we're doing.
It's environmental, yeah.
Right. So it actually would be a nice tag along for it.
What's the Weed Watchers date?
The 10th of August.
Mhm. Does Lake Wyola Association as a group need to sign off on a selection of these dates, Charlene?
No, people just come. It's very informal.
But if we were going to use the hall to set up tables
Oh,
and
yeah. But I can do that for you. That's
Mhm.
not a problem.
Only thing I'm still stuck on the ice cream social. You're gonna draw more younger people.
True.
that's true.
Well,
Say-
I have a couple questions about what the goals are of this event. Are you mostly hoping to reach Lake Wyola Association members? Do non-members ever come to any of these events?
They're always welcome. It's not prohibitive in any way.
I think what we would do is similar to town-wise. There were a group of interested people who got very active in researching the Japanese knotweed issue in town. And they presented something to the select board about Japanese knotweed and had done a lot of research. And then there were some education events, some literature that was developed and passed out. I don't think they had events like this, but certainly we would do all the outreach we could through the town. You know, there's a town newsletter and, you know, there's a lot of things. So as long as the association is basically letting us use their space for this, we could definitely get the word out to others too, and
Okay.
should, I think, yeah.
Yeah, it's striking me as we're talking that if we hold just one event, that would be great as sort of like something eye-catching, really getting people's attention. But we might want to have, like you said, a presentation at it so people sort of get a robust understanding of what we're talking about. And then you might want to have sort of materials available for anyone in town or around the lake who didn't make the event.
Right, now I'm just thinking about, and I wasn't in town, but I don't know, I think maybe Tom attended this. So there was recently a DCR session on wildfires, and it was all done on Zoom. So the whole information session about the danger of wildfires and what people could do to avoid setting off wildfires, and all of this was advertised through the town, and they had sent a little QR code that you could sign up for. So it's possible that we could set up something that's informational on Zoom so people could watch that even if they weren't here at the lake, and then a hands-on kind of set of activities at the association hall on any of these dates that, gets decided as the best date. But I don't know about you all, but I would strongly put in a vote for some kind of, informational session that FERCog has the background and the materials to put on about, what stormwater erosion and sedimentation is occurring, why it's important, and why it's important for it to be worked on by multiple parties, like you say, like a systems-wide approach. I don't know if that's an effective format to have an informational session on Zoom and then hands-on, a day that's kind of, hands-on activities that come and learn. I was even thinking of what kind of incentives we might have to invite people to come and attend, like, could I, for example, approach the Greenfield Farmers Co-op and get seeds for native plants that people could put in to, prevent erosion, or have a rain barrel raffle or two, or, because these are all suggestions that you've made. But I think, the task force is doing a good job at working with the big entities like the town and the association. And then the other component that is a participant, but kind of silent at this point, is property owners, not only around the lake, but on Locks Pond Road and Wendell Road too, because they need to be informed and brought in as well.
I do think the Zoom is a good idea first, personally, because then you could probably get a lot of people. I assume the fire hazard got a lot of people. Does anybody know?
I don't know.
Um,
Tom?
Unfortunately, I don't know what happened, but there were about 12 to 15 people on Zoom and 4 of us in town hall, 2 hosts in town hall, so 6 people in town hall. But they announced at the beginning that they had, I believe, 40 or 50 registrants. So something happened. I wasn't able to, I registered but never got my link. So it was, something might have happened with the tech. But I do like the idea. We could just make sure it worked. May I add a few comments about
Oh yeah, everyone can just, everyone jump in.
yeah, about Tamsin's question about LWA and whatnot. I think it could be a real asset to use the LWA hall and like involve them like clearly, especially because of the town meeting that just happened, where like the town voted to match the money that LWA was also matching for the Rural Development Fund grant application. And therefore, I do think we might include specific references and, materials from the RDF application. I think a lot of people in town who don't have such a, on-ground association with the lake will appreciate knowing like where their money is going. So if we could advertise it well, I think some sort of event or day or a couple of activities. I'm sort of wondering if maybe August 10th could be like a planned day, you know, and we could even add ice cream, Joe, I think, if we did it right. Maybe have 2 days of ice cream in the summer. It would give enough time, I think, to get both a pre-session online or hybrid out there with maybe also some questions or pre-questions submitted, or that was the only thing about a lot of webinars I go to. It's nice to get people involved, unless it's really just an hour, which the fire thing was good at being, it was just an hour. But they had 15 minutes of question time, which was really nice.
What's going on August 8th? Is there already something scheduled again? Is that
There's nothing on the 8th.
Is that a Friday?
That's a Friday. The 9th is the annual meeting, Joe.
Yeah, but I've been to the annual meetings, and most of the time you go in there, it's just the husband and wife. You wouldn't get families and other people.
Yeah,
You
that's
wouldn't.
true.
Yeah, you wouldn't get that whole environment.
Right.
Plus, most of the
right.
people are in there, they have issues they want to talk about.
And then they just
their
want to,
mind is in the LWA versus anything else that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
That's just
Right.
my opinion.
I hear
well,
you.
that's good. I hear that too.
And the ice cream social last year was very, very successful.
What day is that again, please?
That one was on the 19th of July, and it was 6 to 8 o'clock at night.
Plus, we invite the whole town to that. It's like,
You better get a lot of ice cream if you do that.
so you can get a lot of people from different parts of the town, where if you're having a
Right.
meeting for LWA, you don't want to fill it up with people and not have enough chairs.
But you could, the ice cream social, it's usually, isn't it usually outside where that little, I was trying to think, we went to it a couple of times and it seemed like it was outside.
No, it's inside because they
inside.
have different tables with different toppings and
Oh, okay, so the one, maybe we went.
and they also have the ice cream on ice. But you know what? Who said, maybe Joe or someone said, you know, we could do this on the date that we can pull all the components together and we can have ice cream. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be linked up to the ice cream social, right?
Right, right.
We can make our own ice cream social as part of this whole.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Stormwater ice cream.
It seems like the main components.
It ain't Rocky Road.
Yeah, Rocky Road. That's
Jasmine's
good.
probably saying, what are they getting preoccupied with ice cream for?
I like ice cream. They can't do it
They
during the
can
beer
go out,
social.
Joe.
They really go out.
I want to just reflect back what I think I'm hearing, which is that that the three main components are going to be that the FERCog is involved in will probably be some kind of handout that accompanies the stream table, whenever we show up with a stream table, and then a webinar that can be attended by more than just the Lake Wyola Association. I don't know if it makes sense. It might make sense for you all to, especially since you can't make a decision yet tonight, to maybe, like, I think we should keep brainstorming, and I'll keep asking you some logistical questions about it, but then maybe you all spend some time offline or at another meeting talking through your goals again, and then making a decision about what would be best. I checked and I am available the 19th and the 9th and the 10th.
And you'd have to check on the availability of the table too, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. I will do that. We don't use it more than like every 2 months or something. So I would be surprised if it was being used, but and then and I think we only budgeted for 3 of these sort of planning meetings. So just making sure if we do need to come back to sort of hammer out the logistics as a committee that we're budgeting for only 2 more meetings.
Okay. So it sounds like we could get more clear on our goal for this educational event or events.
Mhm.
And that could be communicated to you in writing. We wouldn't have to have another meeting about that, right?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. And in terms of planning, that maybe would require, I might not require another meeting if we as the task force were together on what we had wanted to do, then I can work with you on the logistics, and to the extent that we might need to touch base, we would need to touch base with the association through Charlene.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think how much we need to bring this whole group together to do that kind of work.
Mhm. Yeah, another thing, to think about is like how much you all might want to represent some of these ideas. Like, would somebody from the committee want to speak during the webinar? Or would it just be me?
I don't know. What do you think, you all?
I'm always compelled when the committees have members who talk at their presentations, even if they might repeat sometimes what they say, but usually they're pretty good at, divvying it up. And like a town meeting, that's always more compelling, I think, or other like CONCOM events.
Yeah, I mean, if we were, oh, go ahead, Joe.
Not that everyone, but whoever wanted to, I would say. I think it's nice.
Yeah. Joe? Oh, I thought he was about to say something.
I didn't know. I had my thing off, so.
Okay. If we wanted to touch on some of the highlights from the Rural Development Fund application, that would be cool. I could definitely highlight some of those points. You guys did a walk, you meaning FERCog did a field walk around, and so did our task force. So we could articulate some of that, as well as what our approach has been from the start, what we were all about as a task force. I could give some context that way.
I'm just thinking of 2 things I want to say out loud before I forget them, but Tamsin had mentioned a field walk earlier, I think on a slide or somewhere, but even like just one specific visit to one spot close to the hall might be doable on the same day, just to give people a better concrete idea, like on Shore Road or a culvert somewhere, of the impacts and what we do. And I'm thinking as well, I didn't want to forget to mention it, we as a task force talked about the fact that we're going to have to run by the select board, like what is the future of this topic, who will handle it, and how, will it be a committee or not, etc. But we might find out information about that in July, I'm thinking, which might be helpful in the education part we're doing. I know one thing we talked about is whether there might be more awareness in the town about other erosion and stormwater outside of this watershed, or maybe even other things that just come up in that discussion with the select board about what will be the future of this topic. And it might just tinge a little bit of how we approach some of the webinar or workshop stuff.
Sounds good too. And I was thinking in this webinar, well, one thing that I was thinking could be fun, but then I'm not sure how much fun it would actually be, but it could be, which is kind of myth busting around sedimentation, because there are a lot of different perceptions about what causes stormwater erosion and what stormwater erosion is. And I thought, well, there could be kind of a little fun, true, false kind of thing in the webinar that gets at busting some of these myths, and at the same time as presenting facts, so that there's a little audience participation.
I love that idea.
I've just admitted 2 other members of our task force. So Jim Moore is with us now, and also Bob Douglas. So
good evening, Jasmine.
Hi there. We're just bringing you all up to date. Tamsin and Kimberly are winding up some of the brainstorming we were doing. We can bring you guys up to date later, but we're talking about initiatives for doing some public education events. One is likely to be a Zoom-based webinar, which is more information-based on findings. Some of them would be ours, some FERCog, some about the phenomena of erosion in the first place and misconceptions that people might have about it. And the other is more hands-on stuff. There's a stream table that UMass has that allows you to manipulate.
It's the FERCog. We
it's
used to
FERCog's?
borrow UMass's and then we got our own.
Oh, you got your own. All
Yeah.
right. High class now. Yeah. So an activity where not just children, but everybody can do a hands-on thing about how water runs through watersheds and what happens as you manipulate it. Maybe there'd be a little field walk associated with that, but kind of an event around stormwater. So those are the things we've just been brainstorming. I'll let Tamsin continue with. Oh, here's Tom.
I just want to suggest we call ourselves to order.
Oh yeah,
I wrote
no.
it at 7:42.
Okay, so yeah, sorry for the interruption. We have a full committee here. So I'm going to call everyone to order, and we need everyone to say their names, right, Tom?
We're good on Zoom.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
so we are officially meeting now. Okay. All right, so back to you, Tamsin.
Well, I think it would be useful to run through these notes that I've taken so far to catch Bob and
Jim
up. And you all meanwhile can be asked, like, thinking about what last discussion we would need to have before we sort of, you break off and do more of your deliberating. And one thing I will say is that like I've said, the budget is limited for this, and we're keeping it to sort of one project and one event. And I will have to sort of run whatever you come up with by Kimberly to make sure that that is doable within the budget. So just know that that we might have to trim some of the ideas a little bit if it feels like not possible on our end.
Can I just ask a quick clarifying question?
Yeah.
So is the webinar a potential project and the stream table a potential event?
I think, yeah, I think we'd have to think about just how much work we're putting into each of them and whether it's within our budget. So
I see. Okay. I
to
understand.
me, I'm seeing it as sort of like two events. I don't know how long it would take to create the materials that would support those events. And so,
Right.
yeah, I think the more you all can think about how you can play a role in the event ideas that we're having, the better, so that we, if we're speaking only like 15 minutes of an hour-long webinar instead of an hour, that would make a difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Do you know how long you might be available for a live event, like on the ground? Would it be like 2 or 4 or 1 hour?
Good
Is it too
question.
hard to say now?
The stream table takes a lot of setup, so that would, we'd have to consider that. And then I think we could be around for an hour and a half or 2 hours, but I would have to talk to Kimberly to be sure.
Okay. Just to think of planning.
Yeah, good question.
Doable things. Yeah.
So I said I would go sort of through some of what I captured of our discussion prior to Jim and Bob joining. Jennifer pointed out that this task force has been working a lot with the town. So now it's time to bring in property owners as much as possible. I had mentioned the stream table as an option, so thinking about that being kind of a play, a form of play, or play being a form of education that could work for all ages. So, and if we wanted to capture families, we would probably want to have the event by August 9th. there's a few LWA events like the ice cream social, and the weed watchers, which might not be LWA, but that this could sort of be incorporated into. We want to make sure people are understanding what kinds of erosion is occurring, how erosion happens, why it's important that we work with the watershed as a whole system, and kind of all the different angles to approach the work of mitigating stormwater erosion and and fluvial erosion. And then, and other forms of non-point source pollution. And I know that we talk a lot about sediment, but there are other things too. And then it makes sense to include some information about your application to the Rural Development Fund, because the town recently voted to provide match for that, and the Wyola Association also voted to do that. And then so we're thinking having a webinar, and then also a separate, and the timing could be before, could be after, a separate in-person event with handouts and the stream table, and a visit to a road that is experiencing some issues, and either maybe it needs a fix, or it has been recently fixed, or something that would illustrate some of the principles that we're trying to think about. So I hope that was helpful, Bob and Jim.
Very much so.
I can hang on now here until 8, and we can see if there's anything else that we would make sense to brainstorm about prior to me taking off. Let me just look at this other slide I had. Maybe we could talk a little bit about what kind of publicity would need to happen, and then you probably have this totally covered, but how much of these ideas would we need to run by the select board or town administrator to get their approval on kind of what the plan is?
Kimberly has her hand up.
Hi, it's been great listening to all of these wonderful ideas that everyone has been sharing. And I wanted to just suggest that as you're thinking more about the ideas, and maybe like Tamsin suggested, having a meeting without us to do some more work with this, sometimes it helps to almost start at the end. So what is the ultimate goal of this outreach, like, and trying to be as specific as possible is sometimes helpful. Like, and I'm just offering this as an example. Let's say there was another grant application that required another match, or that could be the goal of the outreach. Is the goal to just engage folks that live around the lake and live in town, and have them walk away from the event with, just this basic understanding of how the system, how the lake is connected to the landscape, how what happens on the land impacts the lake? Like, what are those specific takeaways that you want the attendees to bring back with them, bring home with them, other than a full belly of Rocky Road ice cream, which I think is a really great idea. And then that will also help Tamsin, help us think about like the specific activities, or, like what the information that's in the handout. So I just wanted to offer that.
Yeah, that sounds great. It's a good way to start or continue.
Along those lines, for me, it's you know, now very different when I drive down the road and look at, oh, I'm sorry, Jim, I didn't see your hand was up.
No, you go ahead, finish.
Culverts and whatnot. You know, I've learned a lot by being on this task force, so now I can start to think about those things, and I wonder, like, oh, is that in the right orientation? Is that the right size? Like, that's kind of where I am on my expertise, to be able to even notice to ask those questions. But earlier, I never even would have noticed culverts. So that's something we could give people, I mean, pretty directly.
Jim?
Yeah, I think to the degree that we can hook to the wider community, it's to our advantage, so that that the Brightwater Ames Pond, whatever, is the drains into Wyola, and so the hook there of just making people aware of the connection there, the connection up to the other ponds as well. I think it does make the whole issue of the of being aware of the erosion and the wider scope, so that it's hook it to the largest audience possible. So, to the rest of the town anyway, that's enough there. Thanks.
Yeah, it's almost like a kind of thing of, did you know? You know, you live on Locks Pond Road, way off the road, but did you know that what goes on right around your house is, affecting fish spawning in Lake Wyola? I mean, that's a small example, and it might not be an accurate one, but I think it's hard for all of us to know that we're part of a system because we're in our own localized little section of it. So that's the systems education point. And I was thinking, I mean, I think we do need to think about takeaways, and we can give you some of those. We have already kind of touched on a lot of them tonight, but
I think for me, when I attend anything where there's an educational component, I personally like to walk away with like one or two things that I can do to make it better. And I think if that were, to me, that's where we could use FERCog's help. Like what's maybe not financially connected in any way, but what are some of the simple things that people can do that could really, really start to begin to make a dent into this situation? Because I know you look around and you can see erosion, and people know what it is, and where it actually started, that's a whole different story. But I really do feel when I walk away from something and know, gosh, I'm going to go home and try this because I feel this is going to make a difference. That might be helpful. And I think not in an overwhelming way. People don't like a lot, but just the key things are really good.
I think that's really true and really good. And I was thinking also, some of the things might require some, oh, and wait, I didn't want to forget this. Tamsin, you mentioned it's not only sediment, right? There are other stormwater challenges besides sediment, and that might be things that individual people can do too, take away, what are some concrete actions I can take to reduce phosphorus loading and sediment, or look at how do I, it's like, oh, like the first 10 people get a free consultation on their property of, how does their land affect, what's going on with erosion into Lake Wyola or something like that.
Yeah, and just jump in. I think that your idea of, I don't know if the 10 consulting things, but just so, yeah, that might actually be an interesting thing to have people who could do consultation and just point out to people where they could, you know, use a rain barrel, where they could use um, what am I trying to think of here? Just something to slow down the drainage in their pond, you know, in a wet garden, and sort of, you know, one of those types of things that give people little small things to engage with, that they again, like Charlene's saying, something that people can walk away with from the meeting and think that this is something they could do.
Mhm. So so we have one takeaway, which is understanding watersheds and how they work. Another takeaway is what can individuals do to make the situation better? What else?
Maybe I'm just thinking out loud here. Like maybe some ideas they could for a homeowner to go home and sort of survey their property and say, you know, can you look at something like this and see if you have any sightings of this on your property? Because
Yeah, what to look for on
like
your
a
own.
self-analysis of your personal property.
Yeah, like kind of a checklist of, you know,
Yeah.
like a checklist of look to see if these things are happening
Right,
in your
'Cause
yard.
then that would, you know, give you a good idea. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm thinking today I was up at our farmhouse and I went over by the water hose and there's definitely erosion between the sidewalk and, and the lawn, because I put my foot in, I thought I was going to break my ankle, but never even saw it because of the grass. So now I know that I won't be walking over there for a while. But you know, it's things like, you know, like what can you really look for on your own property? And I think, you know, I know this is more than specific, but you know, people who are on a hillside area are going to have different things to look at than like where our house is. It's very flat.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that would be important in something like that as a checklist, because it your conditions are different. But I know I would appreciate something like that. Like I can go home and check this and see if
Mhm.
I've got potential for problems.
I mean, I don't know if this is a takeaway, but it seems like one goal is to bring together people who might, like say the people who live in the homes on Locks Pond Road, which are high up off the road even, not to mention way up the hill, you know, to bring people together around, you know, we're all sharing the same impacts. They might have micro differences depending if you live on a flat piece of land right next to the lake or you're up on a hill on Locks Pond or Wendell Road, but we all are neighbors in that way of being united around being part of this drainage system. So I don't know if a takeaway, maybe it's more of a goal of creating community around stormwater communities, not just, you know, recreational communities or something like that. I don't mean to narrow it too much, but
No, Jen, I think that's a great idea. Was thinking a similar thing of the neighborhood of, you know, that individual property owners thinking about how to address property is not the same thing as having 3 or 4 property owners that are neighbors, that everybody can get together and say, oh yeah, that's a problem we all have and share, and how can we as a group, so that kind of throwing it into more of at least the takeaway is of maybe giving people the opportunity to organize as kind of neighborhoods around this issue.
right. You said it a lot better than I did. So that might be a goal, and a takeaway could be, you know, items that are planned for these educational events or projects that help to bring that goal into action steps or something.
I was thinking with, already our own history, but of, the micro drainages that we've identified as being areas to think about the water moving from here to there down the hill. Probably neighbors know about those micro drainages, but maybe haven't thought about working together on how to address that issue. So that taking that idea and running with it.
Right. And I think there's awareness raising around actions that individuals are taking that solve their problem, but maybe create a problem somewhere else, So if people were working together in drainage communities, let's say, then they might see, oh, this thing that I'm doing here, it works where I'm on keeping my yard safe, but look what it's doing further down the way, something like that.
I think once we get a plan from engineering and have some sort of a real design work, that's where everybody's going to start coming together. Because if somebody does something now, it's going to, like you said, it's going to affect somebody else down the way, and it may not be the right thing.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to say, I so hope you get this rural development fund grant. It would be so great because I think there's so much opportunity there to actually get specific about how the water is, for people to see specifically how the water is moving and who their drainage neighbors are. And yeah, I think that might be too granular for what we're doing, although we can sort of say, like, eventually we want you to understand that you are in a drainage community and that what people do upstream impacts what happens downstream and stuff like that. It's 8 o'clock, so I think I'm gonna dismiss myself unless there's anything else I can be helpful with.
Did you ever do events like these for like the Buckland project or anything else? Or
Yeah, if Kimberly's still on, she knows more about
Okay.
some of those, like the details of the in-person events than I did. There was a lot of
maybe I'll ask you later about that. But
yeah, it was a bigger, it's a big watershed with a lot of big landowners, and so there were a lot of site visits associated with that project. Like with the fluvial morphologist and a FERCog person, or the Buckland kind of climate point person going and walking around properties with landowners and talking about what's happening.
Oh, for the education part. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like let's wrap up this part. And I think that what I need to get to you, and we need to get to you, is a little bit more concise about what our goals might be. And a subset of that is, what are the takeaways that we would like people to have? And also some clarity around dates. And I think that's all that we would get to you. And we would be looking for, is your budget going to be able to accommodate a hands-on kind of event day, as well as a webinar? Does that seem two things that each of us are going to get for each other?
Yeah, and I think having a handout will be really important of some kind, and maybe and I think if we have already made a presentation and we have the RDF grant application, we already have a lot of the language, and we would just need to kind of reformat it for a handout.
Right. Okay.
And again, one of the goals is capacity building around, being able to have these conversations. So the more you all can do, the more you all can strive to, contribute, the more capacity we've built, I think.
Oh, definitely. And, I think that if we have an event or anything, it could be co-sponsored or have triple sponsors, the town, FERCog, Lake Wyola Association, the highway department can be involved in certain ways, and let it be that that coming together that we envisioned in the first place.
It's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you both.
Yeah. Kimberly, do you have any last comments or thoughts?
When I was just thinking, it may be another activity to consider if we end up doing kind of the station approach that we talked about at the beginning of the meeting, is something that grounds people and connects them back to Lake Wyola. Like, what do you love about it? What is special about it? Share a fond memory or a funny story, like just reinforcing people's connection to the lake and helping them remember, like why it's special to them. I think fosters that the stewardship and the involvement that is really necessary kind of to sustain the types of effort and work that you're hoping to do.
Okay, great. And the ice cream.
And the ice cream, the Rocky Road ice cream. Let's not forget that.
No. And Tamsin, do you think, would it be possible, all of these different various notes that you've taken from our meeting, could we end up getting a copy of those?
Yeah, I'll email them to you in the
That's
morning.
perfect. That's
Yep.
perfect. Thank you. Thank you both. To be continued.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank you.
thank you. It's
Thank
nice
you.
to see everyone. Good
Take
night.
care. All right, I'm stopping sharing. And I am
Okay, here we are.
leaving. Bye. Okay, bye.
Okay,
Bye.
bye. All right, everybody. Hi there. Part 2. That was pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah. All right, this is a now officially open meeting with a quorum. And I guess before we move on to reviewing the minutes, if we have all had a chance to look at them, is there feedback we want to give each other about that? I mean, I kind of tried to summarize what we owed to them. So we owe to them something about our goals, takeaways. That was really good, Charlene, what you were saying about how you like to have some things to take away. If we're going to use the association hall or property, what dates are available to us and how we might like to work that. Are those things that you think we need to have another meeting on, or maybe put that toward the end of this meeting, see how quickly we move through the agenda and maybe make some decisions about that? What do you think?
I think we should make some decisions because you do have to get back to her.
Yeah.
I mean, I just had a little idea, and I remember how much fun it was. And I'll just use the example of what we did in Irving at One Night for Families, and it was a family night event, and it was all about dogs. Everybody loves their dogs, and we invited a local veterinarian, we invited a dog groomer, a dog trainer, different types of foods that dogs. Anyway, we had stations all out on the playground, and we didn't rotate. We didn't make it so controlled. We just said, here are the stations. You're welcome to go to any of the ones you'd like. And then because we offered businesses to come, we said that they could hand out brochures to obviously advertise their business. I'm wondering if we could do something like that. Like if we know somebody who makes, sells rain gardens or develops them, or, different types of businesses out there that people might be interested in finding out about, and then have a brochure, and then, you've helped their business in a way, but you've also educated people to know, did you know this exists? And it's something you might want to try on your property. But it was a fun, and we got a lot of participation, and the participants wanted to do it again because they said the kids were invested, and you could bring your dog and, you know, things like that. But this was, it was set up very organized, but very informal all night. So, and it went for about an hour. And it was very effective. So just something to think about.
No, I think that kind of thing sounds really fun, how we could pull it together in a short,
I know.
even if it was August 9th. But you know what? It doesn't have to just be for this year either. You know, we could do a miniature even like the stream table and some kind of table about what individual property owners can do, or, you know, some kind of raffle about a consultation that someone would be able to get. You know, I know that, well, I was going to mention this, FERCog did a program last year on pollinators. And everyone who came to the program got a certificate to go to this native plant person in Coleraine, and everyone got 2 or 3 native plants that attracted pollinators. You know, so that was just another little component that there is some reason for you to go.
Something
Right.
free, is that what I hear?
Yeah, right, something free. But useful, free in a useful
Absolutely.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so if it's okay, let's make sure we get through this other business too.
Yep.
And we can at least come up with the goals and takeaway part. All right, so has everyone, enough of us, reviewed the minutes that we can comment to Tom or to each other about the minutes?
I make a motion, we accept the minutes of, what was I forget the date,
May 29th.
of May 29th.
I have 2 corrections to the minutes before we
Oh.
second that motion. One is on item number 3,
Mhm.
in the second paragraph, it was Tamsin Flanders of FERCog that made the map.
Oh, pardon me.
And I believe that that's repeated in the last paragraph
Yeah.
on number 3 as well.
How about if I just, for the second mention, change it from with the composite map made by Wallace just to with the composite map?
Perfect.
Okay. But I changed your name to her name earlier.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and do that in both paragraphs. Other than that, I would second Charlene's motion.
Thanks.
So let's have a vote on that. Charlene Galinsky,
Yes.
Wallace, aye.
Moore,
Bob?
yes.
Moore, yes. Bob,
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Okay.
And I.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Tom. Okay, so the next thing here are, so I was contacted by the assistant to the town administrator about reappointments. All the town committees come up for reappointment around this time. And I had said that I wasn't in any position to talk about individual members wish to be reappointed because we hadn't met, and also that our charge doesn't end until November technically, because we had 18 months from when the approval date was. So we don't really need to provide them right now. However, I thought, and I told Brennan, the assistant town administrator, that I'd do a kind of a temperature taking of who in our group might be interested in continuing to work on stormwater issues in whatever configuration it happens to take. And we do not know that yet, because that would be something that the select board would weigh in on, and it's included in some of our recommendations that you've already read in the draft. But do people have a sense of, I've had enough, I'm out of here, or I have too many commitments, or people want to stay associated with some form of work that this task force or some iteration of it might do? Let me just try to get a kind of a head count there. I'm in it for the long haul, so I'm just going to say Wallace is in. Bob?
I'm in it as long as Wallace is.
Okay,
Okay, I'll throw in with you two.
all right. Are you on the island, Joe?
I want to see how the grant goes. I think that
Yeah,
That's my decision. We're not gonna get the grant. We really can't do a lot. We can keep going around in circles, but it doesn't solve our main problem.
Right.
There are other
So,
I want to
grants.
see how that works out.
yeah, there are other grants, but that's fair. Now we're supposed to hear in October, and I will have to check with procedures with the town if the select board decides earlier than that. And that might not even be until August or September of what kind of configuration is gonna make sense. And they won't decide independently. They're gonna take our counsel on it as they have all along. But it may be that some reappointments or some different appointments take place prior to learning about the grant, Joe. But I'm just gonna note that you're gonna reserve until you hear about the grant.
Right.
Okay, Tom?
I'm in it. For doing it. I'll stay.
Okay, Charlene?
Well, my problem is they actually started to begin work on redoing our farmhouse, which is going to involve a lot of us being there and putting our input in. And if I can't come in, I will definitely bring it up at the Lake Wyola Association, so there will be somebody there. It won't be left occupied. But
Okay.
I don't want to commit. I sort of feel like Joe. We don't know where we're at yet until that report, which is, it sounds like we're going to get it, but it'll have the specifics. I think some of us are waiting to see, and then you can start to put things together. But I just don't know my time that's going to be available because of
Yeah,
this
and that's
wonderful
fair.
farm
And
project.
so if I'll say two things about it. One, it's always going to be great and necessary to have an LWA representative.
Right.
So whatever that looks like. And two, if we don't get that grant, we've got some work to do because we need to find another source of funding for these engineering studies. I think we're committed to their necessity. So if we don't get the grant, that would be a setback, but we would have to start to look into some of these other funding sources, and that's probably the work that would occupy a lot of our time. But
And did you say October was when we're going to hear? Okay.
yeah, unless something changes, but that's okay. Well, that's good, and that gives me enough that I can give them that feedback.
Okay, good.
All right, so is there a radio or a TV on in the background?
You know what? I'll move in the other room. My husband came home, and I'm pretty sure it must be my TV that's
Ooh,
affecting.
those bad husbands.
No.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
We're a one television house. You know how
Yeah,
kids have them in their bedrooms.
I
and
do know that. Yeah,
Not us. We are a one television house.
good for you. I can relate.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a written report that's due to the select board. In my meeting with them, they also said that they thought it would be great to have a presentation in addition to the report. So the time frame on this is looking like hopefully we'll be able to vote on and approve the draft that I've circulated to everybody. Once we do that, if we do that tonight, that would be ideal. Then it will get circulated to, that is basically our report, right? But it's incomplete until we get some input from Concom, LWAC, the Lake Wyola Association, and the Highway Department. So once we agree on a report, it gets circulated to those 4 agencies. That was all part of our charge. And then they'll work their process. I know the association only meets once a month, and I think I understand it right, Charlene. The association won't meet again until like mid-July.
Right.
Right. So we might get their comments on the report in mid-July. Concom, I don't know how quickly they would respond. The highway department's usually pretty fast, and so would LWAC most likely be pretty fast. But it doesn't look like we'd have a report with comments until the end of July. So we'd be looking at a submission to the select board around then, hopefully, with a presentation sometime in August.
Okay.
That's the time frame that I kind of am working with in my mind, unless something changes. Any comment? Oh, and there's one more component to that, but any comment on that as far as timing goes?
Just my question, the select board's okay with that, because initially it was June that.
Right. I think they're, when I talked to them, they understood one of them's on vacation, the other one's recovering from heart surgery. You know, it's, you know, when we have our things ready and we feel comfortable with it, we'll transmit it. And our charge technically doesn't end till November in any case. So I think they're fine.
Okay.
Okay, so before we get into your specific comments or questions about the draft and the attachments that go with the draft, there is an outstanding question, which is, we receive comments and/or questions from these 4 agencies. I'll call them agencies, and I think we need to have an agreement among ourselves of how we're going to handle those. In other words, we've made our recommendations and we're sending this out for comment. Are we sending it out because we're going to incorporate those comments and change our recommendations or refine them? Are we sending it out and including those exact comments as part of our report, which is different than incorporating them into our recommendations, but it's saying we've circulated the report and these are the comments from the other community stakeholders, or some other avenue, some other method of connecting to and relating to this feedback that we'll get, if we even get it. We might not get feedback, I don't know. But I wanted to get some thoughts from you about how you thought we should address that. Bob?
Yeah, so I thank you for that, Jennifer. I think we would have our report and have it kind of stand alone, and then comments would come in, say from the Concom or those other groups, and that would be like the second chapter, and it would all be kind of bound together, so that somebody would be able to get everybody's feedback from each of the boards following our presentation. I think I do think it would be great to have everybody agree and sing Kumbaya together, but I think that would just take a lot of time to have you know, their comments come in, we respond to that, and to redo our report. That's just my thoughts.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, I think how I pictured is that our report has a number of different attachments, which you have. If all of the not committee reports, but I'll call them agency reports come in, they get bound together as another attachment, you know, a title being comments from other community organizations, but they're all in one batch.
That sounds like exactly what I was trying to say. Yes.
Okay, so we have, I think, Tom and then Jim.
Yeah, I think I would like to acknowledge all comments we get, but it could be unwieldy to address each one specifically and make a committee decision about whether we do or don't agree with it, and want to include it as just an extraneous or an extra comment from another party. So it might be better just to make our statement and then include those, and if there's agreement or overlap, that's great. But we don't have to like make that a process for us to go through.
Right, and the way that I imagine it is that the comments that we will receive are instructive to us and to the select board regarding next steps.
Yeah, and so I guess I would add to that, there's nothing preventing us as well from, should we recognize a good new comment, to incorporate it somehow. You know, I just don't think we're obliged to go through like line by line of what the comments might be, should they by chance be large. I also just wanted to ask whether there's any anticipation of a public comment period, or I don't know if it's required of our sort of task force and how we're going to make the recommendations in the end, but just wanted to suggest it might be a route we take for one session. I don't know.
Well, it's
We might have
possible.
talked about it already. I can't remember.
No, but what I imagine is that when we give our presentation to the select board, like I said, it probably would be in August, that'll be a public meeting.
Oh, that's true.
We can put the word out to everybody as much as we can. Certainly the other agencies would know that we're giving our presentation to the select board on that date. They could comment directly to the select board if they wish. You know, all the public would know about it. Not just, I mean, we would advertise that it's on the calendar, for example.
Yeah, that would be a good way to accomplish what I'm thinking about. Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
good. Jim. Can't hear you.
You're muted.
Okay, trying to save you all the dog barks that happen otherwise. That I agree with Bob that I think we can acknowledge them and use them as attachments and supplements. And Tom's comment that, of course, if it's a really great idea, let's steal it and use it for ourselves. That, but I do think that just including them as comments that are open to other people is the way to. I don't think we'd have. It'd be really hard to address those 4 different groups as their comments are probably to come from several different directions. So put them up there, let it be known that we're doing that, and steal all the good ideas they have.
Okay. All right, so are we in general agreement then? Everybody, I don't know if we need to vote on it, but it sounds like, let me put it this way, is there anyone who disagrees with that approach?
Well, I'm torn because I feel we're trying to make this a collaborative effort of all the stakeholders, but the final draft will come from us with an attachment showing, remarks from the stakeholders, but not necessarily included in the final report. Do people feel we're going to get a lot of feedback? Is that why it might not be possible to try to make it a collaborative report? Or see, I don't feel we're going to get that much feedback personally, but maybe we will.
Let me just clarify, attachments are part of the final report.
But like, I'm just trying to think of something that, for instance, if there's something that's mentioned about the Lake Wyola Association, and then at the discussion at a association meeting, it's not a doable thing, then that would be shown in the report. But then what happens with the initial suggestion? You know,
I have an idea about how to approach that maybe. And I know, Tom, you had your hand up.
That's where I would.
Right, if we
would
get
want-
comments, let's say that we get comments from any of the agencies that are directed toward one of our recommendations.
Okay.
How about if in the report, at the point where it gives a recommendation, we could say, see attachment 10, comment from Lake Wyola Association. And they can go to that attachment and review that response from LWA to that recommendation. In other words, we don't necessarily change our recommendation because of all the process stuff that would cause a lot of delays. But we acknowledge in the report that there is important information in that attachment that the select board should look at.
Oh, that would work.
Yeah, I think that would be a direct way to link the recommendation to a comment about the recommendation and just not have it be buried in an attachment.
Okay.
Like a footnote almost. Tom?
Yeah, I think I'll repeat what you're saying just with the phrase cross-referencing. Like I was imagining a very well cross-referenced report.
Right.
And really alert the reader that, this is not necessarily the full discussion of this point. That said, thinking about what Charlene just talked about with maybe there won't be excessive input. I'm not opposed if time allows it to try to, you know, especially if some of the input seems of a nature that it should be addressed. Like maybe something will come up, I don't know, but I'm totally for if we have the time and, you know, the capacity, because I think you could be right. There might not be a lot of specific responses or whatnot. So I'm willing to see how it goes that way. And if, you know, we can, maybe we could be more comprehensive. But at the very least, a lot of cross-referencing should be.
Okay,
So
so if we're going to go that route, then I think we have to be in agreement that we're prepared to continue meeting. I think I was trying to save us from meeting, thinking
I
that
hear you. I
if
didn't
we
think of
sign
that.
off on our report, if we sign off on the report tonight, and then it goes out to the various agencies for comment, and we're cross-referencing their comments with the report, then there really isn't a need for us to meet again necessarily prior to this presentation. I mean, we'd have to sort of plan out the presentation, but that could be done via email too. Whereas if we're going to weigh in how to incorporate or possibly change our recommendation, which we've already voted on, we're going to need to have a meeting about that. Now, we could just put off the whole thing and see what we get back too, you know, and that's fair, probably a good idea. Maybe we ought to do that, just, you know, approve this draft. It has to be approved to send it out to these groups anyway. But if we get substantial feedback that we feel really we have to meet and revise our report based on that, we could do that.
And we would theoretically, in that case scenario, be in a position to approve it at a meeting near the end of July of this task force.
Well, we're going to, yeah, no, yes, well, let's see, yes, yes.
If those agencies got back to us in time, I mean, or we
Right.
could suggest a deadline to them.
I think we'd have to suggest a deadline, and it would be based on Lake Wyola Association's deadline, because theirs is.
Well, LWAC too, I think they usually meet the third Saturday of a month and whatnot.
Okay.
So.
Oh, that's right. They're just meeting monthly too. So.
ONCOM might not be able to get to it, I'm thinking.
Right. So.
Expeditiously.
So I would set, I think, what is your date, Charlene, again, the 14th?
I've got to go look. I'll be right back.
We could just set up a meeting that we would cancel if it's not necessary. And
Right.
that way we'd be on the calendar. And it's all set and we can do it if we need to. And
Yeah, that's what we should do. I'm just thinking
and
what would
maybe
that date
incorporate
be?
and again, incorporate good ideas. This would give us a chance to do that.
Right.
It's the 24th, Jen.
You guys are meeting on the 24th. So
Yep.
if that's true, that's a Thursday, like ours are on Thursday. So we would set up a meeting for ourselves on the 31st. I'd probably give the other groups also the 24th as a deadline. That would allow LWAC to have its meeting. We would meet on the 31st to review these comments and make decisions about how we want them to go into our report. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
That'll still keep us on a good trajectory, right? Or
Yeah,
pace?
yeah, I think it
Okay.
still will,
Okay.
because then I can get it to the select board almost as soon as we vote.
Mhm.
I mean, unless we're making substantial changes to our recommendations. Okay, good.
So I'm reading it as are we in a position if somebody wanted to make a motion to approve the package you sent out for distribution to the other agencies? Or?
Well, not just yet, because
Okay.
there's a Q&A about that, but I think we're in a
Okay.
position to set our next meeting date. So we'll jump the agenda a little bit and say our next meeting date will be set for the 31st of July, unless it's canceled.
Unless what's canceled, Jen.
We might cancel that meeting if we
Oh.
don't get anything of substance back from anybody.
Yep.
Okay. So now,
I
comments on the,
apologize, Jen, what time would that meeting be?
I guess it would be at 7 unless you all want to change the time.
That sounds fine.
Okay. All right, so now comments on the draft report and or its attachments.
I had some things on the Stormwater Erosion Task Force findings and recommendations from the, oh no, I gotta see. I did this so long ago, I can't remember. The 2024 FERCog Lake Wyola Watershed Base Plan, because that's going to be one of our attachments, correct?
Yeah, you're talking about, you're in like paragraph 1 to the third paragraph of the first page, task force working goals,
I don't,
or the very first page.
the statement that's jumping out at me, there's a little box in front of it and it says
Okay.
lack of road maintenance and impacts from snow plowing. And that's a strong statement because the roads are maintained. And to say there's a lack of that, well, I don't know, that's unsettling to me because, they're Lake Wyola roads. And I know people do take time to do things and work on them. So the term lack of road maintenance sounds so negative. I just felt it needed to be reworded.
So it's not our language, it's FERCog's. It's directly from the report.
Right.
And the report was approved by DEP.
Okay, so we can't change that then. So it's
I can't do that in good conscience.
okay.
I could point out that when you all make your comments, you can point that out. Lake Wyola Association can point that out, and it could get cross-referenced in this report.
Okay.
We'll note it says both in the report and what you wrote that these are possible causes. So
Right. It
Yeah,
does.
it does say
isn't like,
possible.
it isn't a declaration that there is a lack of road maintenance.
Right.
Okay. It's just, I don't know. Like I said, it came across negative to me.
Yeah, it is though, it is in the report.
Yeah, and whenever you say lack, but I can't, nor none of us can do anything to change that because that's directly from their report.
And then on the task force recommendations, there's on number 4, create a coordinated, and that's a town and Lake Wyola stormwater management maintenance mechanism, either through an existing committee like LWAC or a new body. I wasn't sure what that new body
This
was.
is number 5, right?
I have it as number 4.
It should be
Number 4 in mine.
Huh. I have number 4, operation and management plan. That's weird. Okay, I know which one you're referring to. So we talked as a committee about what happens. Where does this work that we've started reside once our task force is completed?
Okay, so that was the new body you were talking about.
Correct.
Okay.
So we're recommending to the select board that such a mechanism get created. Because other than the task force, there is no mechanism like that.
Right. And that would be set up by the select board then, Jen? Is
I
that
believe so. They would be the only ones that would have the authority to do that, and we're going to talk to them about it. I mean, they may say we got too many committees in town already, that there should be a stormwater erosion person on LWAC, for example. Or there should be a group that's housed within some other town agency, or we're going to create a new committee. But what we're saying is that we recognize through our work that there's a need for an ongoing institutional body that can coordinate and and do the same systems-based approach.
Okay.
The only thing I see with that line is that if the Lake Association doesn't get enough membership one year and the funding is in there, how does they make that be applied?
Well, I mean, what we're talking about is not doing anything except for, I mean, we're not saying that work is necessary or funding is necessary. We're saying that, like Charlene has been the representative from the association in our group. So a Lake Wyola representative, along with these other groups, would have a representative somehow so that the work on stormwater erosion continues to be a coordinated effort involving multiple groups. I don't know that funding is involved. Shouldn't need funding, just needs a person who can come to meetings and have an interest, right? And can give feedback back to, their individual motherships or however you want to. Did I answer your question, Joe?
Just thinking as far as, because what Charlene was talking about with the roads and being not taken care of enough, a lot of that, because I was on the roads committee at one time, deals with how much funding that particular year was given towards the roads to fix them.
Right. So let's not misunderstand this. So, and maybe it needs to be rephrased. So what this item is saying is create a coordinated management maintenance mechanism. Maybe mechanism is the wrong word, either through an existing committee or a new body that would be responsible to be a liaison between town and LWA, and to coordinate with Concom and LWA, and to provide information and assistance to the engineering firms, to review annual projects, and to follow up on implementation. I mean, it's basically saying, dissolve the task force if you have to, but create its twin. It's a planning, it's a planning body. It's not a implementation body.
I guess what I was looking at is like our finished product is to get something done. and you're gonna say, let's do this. And I guess that's what I'm looking at it in a different way.
No, I understand Joe's comments there, that I think it somehow needs to foreground the idea that this is the town that's doing this. And because there's really no way to make the Lake Association do anything on, out through the town in terms of putting any obligations on them. And what we want to do is continue the coordination, but
that's what this, help me rephrase this, because that's all this is saying.
yeah, that's what I think part of the misunderstandings about. But,
let's make this, give me a sentence or two, or cut this down, or, do you understand, like what we're recommending to the select board is that they create a town-based group that incorporates these different stakeholders. Everybody has a place at the table.
The town continues to coordinate activities with blah, 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 blah. I might, or stormwater, issues with blah, 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 blah. So
okay, so it'd be something like
I
create a
suggest-
stormwater management mechanism that brings together these bodies.
I'd call it a process rather than a mechanism.
Good, Charlie.
Because I just know our task force, we can only make recommendations. But if they establish a committee, a standing committee, they're going to have different responsibilities than we could have had. Do you know what I mean? Because I know that happens in towns where an ad hoc committee, you can't go in and say, look, we want you to do this, this, and this. You just say, these are what we're recommending. But a standing committee, can actually make a presentation that this is what they'd like to do. And then, of course, you have to go through the approval process, especially financial. So it sounds like this would be more than what our committee is, if I'm reading this correctly.
Let's start with this. Hang on, Tom. So let's see whether we're in agreement with the second half of this that says there needs to be something that provides information and assistance to the engineering firms that are conducting these studies. You know, we know what's going on around the lake. The highway department knows. So someone's going to be an on-the-ground contact for them. Some organization, some committee, if we want to call it that, wants to research additional funding sources, because we're going to need more funding. If we get the engineering study completed, we got to raise money to implement these things.
Mhm.
There's review of annual projects that are proposed under this operation and management plan, which we've already recommended. So some groups got to do that. And some group is following up on implementation. So the tasks that this committee, if it's a committee, is going to engage in are outlined here, unless we are in agreement with those tasks or want different tasks. We could say, I could ask, do you think that these things that are at the end of this paragraph are necessary steps to continue our work?
You would ask the select board that, Jen?
No, I ask us that.
Oh, us, okay.
Yes, Tom.
I think I'm answering your question by suggesting we might want to start this part of the document. This is number 4.
Give it as number
correct?
4. Yeah, I had it
Right.
as number 5, but I don't know what you have.
Okay,
as
it says number 4 on mine,
Okay.
coordinated. Okay.
Yep.
So I'm wondering if we might just introduce it with something to the effect of, in order to ensure the success of, work begun, and we can find a better phrase, and upon the eventual sunsetting or possible sunsetting of this task force, we recommend to continue. I liked Jim's word about continuing. And we can keep it as create or not, but I just think some sort of introduction thing, why we're putting this part, like we recognize that our committee might not exist forever, and that the work will. So therefore, we recommend that a mechanism or a process be created to continue the management and maintenance. But I just think it just needs a little intro. Is what I'm thinking, to help
I think that's good. And we work in process. We work in creating a process, and we work in, I think it's important to work in that the process should coordinate and involve these other stakeholders or other agencies that have a role to play, or
I just noticed that in the document, we never come out and say, we recognize that this task force may not last, with the people who it is now.
but we know that just because that's its charge.
Right, but I think that saying that out loud explicitly for this number 4 part, we really just hammer it home for the reader, like, oh, right. This is because they recognize there's a future that might not be them per se.
Okay, I can sign on to that. How do other people feel about that?
I like that better.
I do too.
Okay, everybody, all right.
Thanks, Tom.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks. So what do you all have for number 4?
We have 5 of them all together. Do you have 5 in this part, or do you have 6?
I do, but I might have somehow, well, that's what I'm saying.
It goes 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe yours doesn't do that. Mine goes, I have 2 number 1s. That must be it.
I have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yes. So does that help? My version for some reason has 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Mine has
I
double
just noticed
ones.
that now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. Okay.
Yeah,
So
I thought, Jennifer, you just thought it was that important that each one was.
Can I quickly say about what is either the one before the one we're talking about?
Wait, no, let me try to reorder them, because we're going to vote on this. Okay, so
well, there's just a word we have to change from zoning board to planning board.
right, we'll do that in 1 second.
Okay.
All right, so one, I'll just say the first couple of words. One should be obtain estimates from engineering firms. Two
Oh,
should be
Wait.
continue.
That's not what I'm seeing. Are people looking at the same document I am?
I don't-
Oh, no.
Tom,
Here.
does yours say the task force has endorsed?
Yes, that's what my
Okay.
number one says.
Wait a second, I think you might be on a different page than me. Hang on. How did this happen? I'm confused. I have a title here that says Task Force Recommendations. Those in italics have been implemented already.
Yeah.
That's
I
the
have that as
section
well.
I'm working on.
Right.
And that
And
was
then
number 4
Yeah.
that we talked
Right,
about.
but just, what do you have for number one?
the task force has endorsed FERCog's recommendation to begin a systems approach to addressing issues. To begin by conducting, it's a long sentence. Shall I read it all?
No, I'll find it. Somehow that got dropped
But you
from
said
mine.
we obtained, because then the italicized part starts with we obtained estimates.
Yeah, I think that that's where the double number ones came from. All right, I can fix that. All right, number two then, you have a number two, continue to research alternative funding.
It says continue to locate alternative funding and hours.
That is so weird. Well, I'm gonna have to fix all this before we can really vote on it, I guess. How about this? I'm just really trying to save us some time. Let me see if I can share my document. Okay, can you all see that?
Yep.
All right, I see here. So you have, and I have the same one. So this is number one, task force has endorsed. This is what you have, right?
Yes.
Okay. This should be number two. Continue to locate alternative funding.
I like the word research. 'Cause
Research. Yeah. Okay. This is number three. Oops. Plan and conduct periodic public education sessions. You all have that? Yes?
I don't
Sorry,
have
I'm just jumping between windows here. Number
You're going to send us this anyway, Jen, right?
plan
I
and
was ho-
conduct periodic public education session.
Right. I was
Yeah.
hoping that we could vote on it.
Right. But once we vote
Oh,
on it,
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, here's four. How that got to be one, I have no idea. Develop a coordinated town and Lake Wyola Association operation and management plan.
And in the last part of that one, can you please change zoning board to planning board?
Okay, yep. Okay, whoops. And then there's number five, which we just talked about. And that's going to change. And I might have to Tom, you want to give me that intro again real fast? Do you guys have time? Can I put this in here and then we can vote on it?
Yep.
Okay.
Perhaps in the event of the eventual
You said in
sunsetting.
order to ensure.
Oh, right. Well, yeah, I didn't know how to finish the in order to ensure part, but in order to, with an E for ensure, right?
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, be careful. You forced yourself into a sentence there. And I would suggest spelling ensure with an E, not with an I.
E, right,
Yeah.
okay.
In order to ensure work done by the task force And in light of its expected dissolution in the future, it's just an extra C in expected.
Yeah.
It is recommended to create, and then I think the rest kind of,
We decided-
you know, and then.
We decided process was better than
Correct,
management.
yeah.
Process. I'll just say, can I say for continuing our work?
Can you hit Control Z for a second? I'm curious what you cut out because that might have helped with some of the phrasing. Or can you like undo what you just chopped out for a second? I thought it was going to be, is recommended to create a coordinated stormwater management and maintenance process, either through an existing committee or a new body.
I don't have to say like LWAC.
And just the word A after create before the underlining begins, a coordinated stormwater.
Okay. So let me read this out loud and see if we're happy with this as a revision. In order to ensure work begun by the task force and in light of its expected dissolution in the future, it is recommended to create a coordinated stormwater management maintenance process, either through an existing committee or a new body. Such a mechanism would have the responsibility to A, be the liaison between the town and LWA representatives, B, to coordinate with Concom and LWAC, C, to provide information and assistance to the firms conducting engineering studies, D, to research additional funding sources, E, to help develop and review annual projects proposed under the operation and management plan, and to follow up on implementation. F, develop water quality testing plan and other follow-up and on FERCog's recommendation. C, attachment 8. Is that agreeable?
Yep, I would just put
Yeah.
a capital T on town because it's our town.
Right.
And under E, where it says and to follow up on implementation, I would take the hyphen out of follow up.
Okay. That goes here too.
No, that one I would keep because that's a
Oh.
noun. Because you're going to develop
How
follow up.
about this one? This is a verb.
Correct. That would be no hyphen for 6.
Okay. Okay, good. Yay, I'm glad we worked that out. And share FERCog, oh wait, follow up with Highway Department and LWA on implementation of FERCog's recommended short-term maintenance projects. That's attachment 9. So, and here's a list of all the attachments. We will have an attachment 10, most likely, which will be the comments from the various other committees. And those, as we've agreed, will be cross-referenced within the recommendations if appropriate.
And Jen, where is the short-term maintenance and management recommendations? Is that on another document?
It's an attachment, but I can show it to you here.
I had some questions on that.
Okay, hang on a minute.
I feel like I'm offering things. Does anybody else have things? I don't want to monopolize.
Go for it.
I agree.
Okay, here's the short-term maintenance and management recs that we developed a couple of meetings ago.
All right. No, those are the ones. Oh, wait a minute. Mine look.
If they look different, it may be that for readability for this draft, I grouped all the highway department recs
Oh,
in one place and the association recs somewhere
Oh,
else.
so they're not in the order that,
They're in a different order. Here's where Lake Wyola Associations
okay,
begins,
so
number
that's
7.
all right, that's what I have in front of me. All right, so starting with number 7.
Right.
When we had talked before, the Lake Wyola Association had given different language that we had voted on at the meeting, and that wasn't included here. It was what I have from my notes is the LWA will evaluate the Great Pines water bars to assess future recommendations. That's all we put in for that one, rather than the specifics of meeting with the highway department, and which they'll do anyway, but
Well, except for when I met with the board the other day, last time, whenever you
Yeah.
met last time, and this is what was agreed that was going to be done, and this is what I was told to put into the report. When you
where
that
did
meeting,
that language go that we voted on? Because it was
that was, I think that, well, I mean, that's in an earlier draft, but when we presented that and George was articulating the highway department's issue, the sanding trucks issue with the water
Right.
bars, he said you should put that in the report. That
okay. All
that
right.
it was the highway departments and that they were going to talk to the highway department about the recommendations from FERCog.
Okay, so I'll just double check that when we have our meeting, that we're clear on that.
Okay.
As I know we voted, we spent a lot of time just coming up with that short sentence, and then it's not there anymore, but.
I think we have to, what we're trying to do here is recognize that FERCog recommended one thing.
Right.
But the association wants to, has different thoughts about it through their experience and their history, and that they got feedback from the highway department that maybe that wasn't the best way to go. But we're trying to acknowledge FERCog's recommendations as well. So it could be that when you all weigh in on all of these, that you want a special comment to be like a footnote here, that FERCog may have recommended that, but it's not feasible because the highway department can't deal with the water bars.
Right. Okay. And then the one about include drainage and erosion assessments as part of LWA's annual and seasonal should include. Oh, wait a minute. Why did I write this down? Oh dear. Whatever. Okay. I think I wrote down the last 5 because, the last 4, because those were the ones to be checked with the association. Because of, again, they're very specific.
That's good. You should, when they get all these, then they can weigh in on
Right.
these
And
we'll
they're all
include
together
those.
now, as
Yep.
opposed to how they were before. So that might make it easier for me.
Yep.
And number 10 is going to be up for discussion because, and I think, Tom, you and your friend sent a letter about the Laurels area because we're not even sure what's happening with that right now. So I
Yeah,
don't know how we should we even keep that in there right now? Because right now it's out of the courtesy of the Lake Wyola Association that the Laurels are taken care of because that's all private owned area. But then there was the discussion at the annual meeting that area may become gifted to the Lake Wyola Association, and it may not. In your letter, Tom,
Mhm.
you're questioning whether it should be gifted. So here it says discuss ownership and remove. We know the ownership right now, how it exists. I'm not sure what discuss ownership means.
What do we want to say? What do we want to say about, so FERCog's recommendation, which we concurred with, we
Right.
agreed with, was to remove sediments from these turnouts and install additional turnouts. So if this was not there, that
I
would
think
be a
that belongs in the brackets somehow, like LWA or owner as appropriate. something like
Right,
that.
so it could be that the recommendation is to remove these sediments. However, ownership issues would need to be resolved.
Right.
Yeah,
Something like
exactly.
that.
Well,
Okay.
like, it does get done anyway, so I don't know that ownership needs to be raised.
It's just that it's been raised now by the association and the Gripcos. Like it's on the table currently. It's a question of the ownership transferring.
I know, but these activities do get done.
Right, but I think there's some
Yeah.
question as to their continuation based on the
Yeah.
result of these
Okay.
ownership
Like there
discussions.
doesn't seem to be a written contract for it, so
I think it's
Oh.
the
because-
history is useful, but I don't know if the history is going to mean everything.
And Tom, does a pipe that you own maybe go under that road and up to another? I think there's
Our sewer line goes under the road. The electricity for the Gripcos goes under the road.
right. So those are all.
Yeah.
I just know from a friend of mine that lives in the Boston area, when they bought their house, they had a lawyer obviously check the deed and everything. And then they went to sell it about 30 years later. And lo and behold, the city of Boston owned half of their backyard and they could not sell until that was resolved. And I'm just feeling, by saying Lake Wyola is going to take care of this, and yet we don't own the road, technically. It's just a courtesy that we do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's a little fuzzy.
I
Maybe it shouldn't
agree.
be
I
there.
never understood it.
Maybe it just shouldn't be there because even people on both North and South Laurel Road have property on both sides of the road. I know when I owned the house on that side, I always thought that I owned half the road. Now, what I found out from listening to the other day is that I always thought that the town originally the person didn't pay the taxes on the road, so the town didn't want to take it over. That's why the road stayed that way. That was
Yeah, I don't know why, but yeah, the road is owned by a different party. Like our deeds just say we have the right of access to the road, essentially.
So who pays the tax? Because
It's
I
a-
was always under the thing that no one was paying the taxes.
Oh
on
no,
it.
the taxes are up to date. The person's name is Priscilla Haggerty on the tax card, but there's a trust, the Santa Fe Trust, I believe it's called, that might be making the payments. But you can check all that at the assessors. So
Right, let me ask this question. I don't think it's fair to remove it because we're all about sedimentation and what happens on the Laurels, I was just there myself, is an impact. So we can't just erase it because the ownership is problematic or that Lake Wyola is doing it now in spite of the ownership. I think we need to highlight that sediments are an issue and that questionable ownership on the roads makes a solution more complicated, and maybe leave it at that.
And then
But-
I would take out LWA at the end.
Right, I think so too. So something like oops. How about something like that? Sedimentation and runoff on South and North Laurel continue to impact the lake, but road ownership issues.
can you please, you had something about turnouts in there.
Right, but that's the solution. So I'm not going to put in the
Oh,
solution.
okay.
Sedimentation and runoff on North and South Laurel continue to impact the lake, but road ownership issues have complicated.
Could we put
Long-term.
such as turnouts? and water bars? Because I think those have been the solutions they've been trying to deal with.
Mhm.
How about that?
Thanks.
Not 11.
Yeah, it got spaced a little funny. I appreciate that.
And hasn't it been a practice in the past that when there were big needs on that road, whomever were the residents that wanted to contribute financially, put in money toward everybody having like a company come in and fix something? Wasn't that done a
Yeah.
few years ago?
We did it when I lived over there. Part of the road washed out and we all paid, everybody on the road threw in money and paid to get it fixed.
Right.
That was on North Laurel.
I don't think it's happened since I've moved there, which is 2017.
Well, we had to run up the bottom of the hill.
Yeah, do you remember? I think
No, and
I came
also
in
there
after
was-
you. Like, I don't know if it's been a recent.
No, I
event.
think there was something that some neighbors came together with the Colcotts to work on the big amount of water that was dumping down into their property. That was before Dave Boron put in those water bars.
Oh, okay.
All right, so the last thing here was develop short-term solutions for addressing drainage and impacts on 3 properties and safety issues at the end of Shore Drive.
Now, that was what 3 properties are being referenced?
Well, I don't want to put specific addresses in here. We talked about those at the neighborhood meeting, the 3 properties that are being affected down there. I just
So-
thought it was appropriate to indicate the number of properties involved, but not to name the owners.
Okay, so that was specific. So 3 properties on Shore Drive properties, right? But that
Correct.
must have been that was a recommendation from FERCog, or was that?
No, some of these are our
own?
recommendations as
Okay.
well, yeah. I mean, that was a big water system, drainage system that we looked at up there. It's one of the big ones on Shore Road, in addition to the one that drains down to Pine Drive.
Is that the one we looked at when we took a walk up the hill by changing a few things, it changed where the water was coming down by that area?
No, that was the one that goes down and eventually hits Pine Drive. That's a different one. This one
Okay.
comes from some kind of underground stream that runs underneath someone's house, but then comes across the road, freezes in the winter, dumps into someone's storm drain, dumps into someone's stream and floods his yard. But
Those are the ones that filled their own, that were filling up their own culverts.
no, that's even a different one.
I know there's a couple of it.
Yeah, right. So Charlene, I think the thing is, these are things that you guys will review when you review it. And if you have comments, include it in your comments.
Right. I just refresh my memory then. Are we talking about the end of the street where the letter came in from that lady complaining about what was done?
No, we were down there near, I don't know about any letter. There's a stream that goes underneath someone's house.
Right, right.
It
We're
cuts
talking at
across the
end of it.
road.
The
It
south
cuts
end.
across the road and it dumps into the Andrex storm
Okay,
drain.
that's right. So the 3 properties are at that end. of
At
the-
that end, correct.
Okay.
That's why it says the end of Shore Drive.
So somehow I guess I didn't see it that way when I read it. I think with the end,
How
3,
about the south end of Shore
That
Drive?
helps.
yeah, and then I would put the 3 properties closer to that south end of Shore Drive, because it looks like 3 properties and then all of a sudden the south end of Shore Drive shows up.
How about that?
How about for 3 properties instead of and 3 properties? Or at 3 properties?
At. How about that?
Okay, so those, I know which properties they are now.
So when this gets shared with the association, it's really now the association can weigh in on comments on any of these. And we'll review those comments when they come in and decide if they get included in a general set of documents of comments from all the committees, or whether we feel that there are specific comments here that we need to work in and revise our recommendations.
Yep.
Okay.
That was all I had to comment on.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so any other comments we should attend to, anybody? Okay, good. So can we take a vote that we are, wait a second, do we now still have a quorum? I don't know if Bob is, oh, let me stop my screen sharing.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm not going anywhere.
Oh, there you are. Okay, good. Well, I didn't see your name there. Okay, so can we have a vote that this report is our almost final report, contingent on whether we revise it based on committee recommendations or agencies, and that now I have our approval to send this on to Concom, LWAC, Lake Wyola Association, and the Highway Department. And I'll send that plus the attachments with an email inviting people to comment by July 25th. And that we will then be adding their comments to our report to the select board.
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion that this is our almost final report and will be sent out to the relevant committees that have been discussed, as well as the timeline.
Second.
Okay, can we have a vote, Charlene?
Yes.
Wallace, aye.
Joe,
Jim?
I.
Joe, aye. Jim,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Tom.
Aye.
Okay, good. Thank you for sticking with that.
Hooray.
Can I just say that hearing somebody with the last name of Wallace saying "I" just sounds so Scottish to me.
Right. Well, I take that with honor. Me and William Wallace.
Aye. Yes. It was meant to be a compliment.
I can only say William Wallace and see, men in skirts and broadswords racing crazily at each other on wild horses. And when I was in Scotland and Ireland, I had the most crazy dreams, all black and white
Really?
dreams of like Braveheart guys on horses charging around.
That's awesome.
Okay. With that little bit of history for the recording, we have our next meeting date, which is July 31st, 7 p.m. if we need it. And then the only other, I will give for COG the information they're asking for. I may send a little email around asking for any, comments on that, or if I've missed anything on takeaways, we hope, goals for the education sessions. Charlene, you're going to get back to me about any available dates if we decide to do something at the community association, if they're in favor of us,
Right.
tacking on.
Right.
Will you need to wait until July 24th to do that?
No, I could send individual I could just send to the executive board and see
Okay.
if that works. The more I'm thinking about it, though, if we're looking to get as big a population involved, I think if we have it like the Weed Watchers is for everybody, that's a known project, because it's really not part of an environmental committee in Lake Wyola. This is what the Timpsons do every year, and they go through the state board, process and everything. I'm wondering if that isn't the best option, because then we could expand it and we could get Joe's ice cream in there and
Rocky Road.
Rocky. Oh, there we are. I prefer butter pecan, but that's all right. anyway, then it's not specific to the Lake Wyola Association, which might make people think, well, I have to be a member to be able to go. We want to make sure we're getting out to everybody. And so whatever activity seems to make people think it's, really a community event rather than a specific association event. That's all I'm wondering about.
It's a really good point. As someone who has participated in the Weed Watchers since the very first one, I think I've only missed maybe the last two. Hardly anybody comes, even from the association. It's usually just the Timpsons, myself and my partner, Edith Huntsberger used to come. She hasn't come lately. So it's not a very widely attended event. Now that could just be an outreach problem. But I just want to put that out there that it's not an event that draws a lot of people.
Right. But I'm just thinking, like we have the second annual membership meeting the day before. So this could be a big push at that meeting. So and then we could ask people to go out and spread the word to non-members, to community. I mean, as long
I like the environmental
I
tie-up.
to call it an environmental, whatever, what would be a not workshop, because people might not want to come to do work.
No.
Environmental adventure. Oh no.
Well, we'll come up with a name, but we still need a location because the Weed Watchers just
Yeah, well,
meet.
we can still use that.
I see. Yeah.
That's not the issue, though. I'm just trying to think how we can make it look like it's, if it comes off of the town website, that's perfect. And then the Lake Wyola, Jean Fontaine is fabulous with getting information out a lot. So we could have her do it. So you'd get, those the specific people who are members, and then I think we would, and I bet the Timpsons would be really excited to know that more people might be coming to their event, because they are so passionate about it and they do such a good job. I know we've always wanted to go, but we've always been away. So I have to check the schedule now. We'll be home because the second annual meeting. So that might work this year for us. But I'm just thinking it's less Lake Wyola Association orientated than if we do the ice cream social, which is Lake Wyola Association oriented.
Yeah, no, I understand that. So I guess we would still need the association hall on that date.
Yep.
And we would somehow talk to Tim. We wouldn't, just let them know, but it would be advertised as kind of a, I know we were trying to come up with a name, like an environmental celebration day. So it would include Weed Watchers, it would include stormwater erosion information sessions, it would include the stream table. It would include, homeowner tips and tricks for reducing sedimentation, that kind of thing. So kind of a celebration or something.
Charlene.
Yeah.
Just a quick question for you. The date of our ice cream social is, how close is it to that date?
To which date?
So when our ice cream
The
social.
Weed Watcher date, yeah.
Okay, wait a minute. I gotta go get that schedule. I left it on.
Because I'm just thinking if you could schedule it on the same day as the ice cream social, because now all of that's already in place. The ice cream's there, everything's set up, and have Timpson schedule another day if they wanted to, because it's not a lot of people, to do a Weed Watcher day, to schedule it with our ice cream social on top of this. Have everything together. Would that be too much?
Well, it's just they would have to know how much ice cream, and
they always have a lot of ice cream. I mean, they're always.
Yeah. Let me go get that schedule. I left that on the phone.
Because this way you wouldn't have to go out and somebody doing all the work to get the ice cream and get everything in place.
Well, we only need one flavor, Joe.
Well, you haven't worked the ice cream social. I have. You don't have. You gotta have chocolate, vanilla. You gotta have like the strawberry because some kids don't like chocolate. Some kids
I
like
know.
vanilla.
I know, but we only need Rocky Road, so in terms of extra ice cream.
So that's the 19th, the ice cream social.
Okay.
And the only thing I can see that might be questioned is if this is a social, we've made it more into a educational night. Do you know what I mean? That might take away from the social. I'm just saying it might.
Okay. No, that makes sense. I just trying to figure out of adding all the other stuff into it. That's all.
Well, I was thinking if we did ice cream on the Weed Watcher Day, each of us bring in a gallon of ice cream.
That's all. I bring coffee.
We know what you're going to bring, Joe.
Then I could bring my lactose-free ice cream too.
And there you go. I got 2 gallons of almond milk.
And then if there's any left from the ice cream social, we can ask what they're doing with it. And certainly, I'm sure we could get handed it.
Okay, so
They buy that.
what we're saying now is August 19th is not August 19th.
July 19th is the ice cream, and August 10th is what we're talking about.
Oh, August 10th. Okay, I heard
August 10th is Weed Watchers.
Okay, so August 10th is Weed Watcher Lake. I don't know what we would protect your lake, stormwater erosion
celebration.
What was that?
Environmental celebration.
Okay. Earth Day in August. Lake Day. You've heard of Earth Day, now we have Lake Day. Okay, so we don't really need to, I mean, of course we talked to Tim and everything, but this will happen sometime. Weed Watchers, they go out early. Usually they went out around 9 all the time, right?
They have on the schedule 10 to 11.
All right, so 10 to 11. So this would theoretically happen after Weed Watchers was over.
Right, you could do it after or before. You could do 9 to 10. Or is that too early for people?
I think it might be early. Plus we might need all the time we need.
Oh yeah, 11 to 12 and then ice cream at noon.
Yeah, something like that. And we might want more than 1 hour, I mean, I don't know. Hour and a half or 2 hours would give us a little wiggle room, but can we say 11 to 12:30?
Yeah.
Okay. And ice cream at 12:30. And then we would have the stream table.
Right.
And we would have some handouts and information regarding things people could do on their own properties. Maybe I'm gonna try to get some things, I don't know what they would be, that would be like give away. Maybe we get one rain barrel donated and we have a little raffle for a rain barrel, or gift cards to pipe stores. I don't know what. We were going to have a consult, some kind of consultation on ways that individual homeowners or property owners can manage stormwater. Yeah, Charlene?
I have, only because I never thought to bring it from downstairs. I have a gift bag from Treehouse Brewery. I don't know if that really connects with Weed Watchers, but
I know what kind of weed you're looking for.
Now we're on a recorded line.
What? Massachusetts.
No, I have that and I told Maura and Art Keen that was supposed to be a raffle item for the road race, but I left it with the August calendar raffle stuff and never brought it down. So it's left over, and I asked them what they wanted me to do with it, and they said I could save it to next year or find another place to do it. So I have that. It's like a $30 thing. It's got some glasses. So, I mean, unless it's too tacky to put on an environmental celebration. Well, it's celebration.
It is a celebration, right? Well, let's hold that in the wings. It may or may not
Okay,
come in
just
handy.
know it's there.
But how about, all right, so we've been at this for a little while now. They asked us about takeaways. So what kind of things, oh, someone wanted a checklist. That was a good idea, Charlene. You know, that we
Right.
develop a checklist of things that could be done. We want the if we can swing this webinar about, you know, the impact of stormwater in watersheds, how systems affect each other, how individual properties are part of a wider system. So that's educational, I guess. What individuals can do to make it better. And just building community around sedimentation issues. We have some time, we could come up with other things that could be presented on tables and whatnot. But what do you think the main takeaways are here? What do we want people to leave with? And think that it's the combination of this hands-on activity plus the webinar.
Mhm.
Right. And maybe just the fact that this is a serious starting point for all the invested parties to really begin getting control of sedimentation, erosion, however you want to, whatever you want to list. But this is the first time it's sort of a group effort compared to people, you know, doing it individually or individual groups thinking about it.
Okay.
So that, and that includes, you know, not just these groups, but it includes the residents. We need their help. I mean,
Yep.
you know, for
Okay.
instance, like, for instance, was it yesterday? Ed and I were out on the boat, and there were two people swimming, no buoys or anything. So we stopped and told them they couldn't do that, and we said, "Do you have property on the lake?" And they said no. So they had come from the town beach, and what they're doing, at least now, this is the second day in a row. Once the lifeguards leave, they go beyond the buoys and swim out into where, you know, there's other people doing other things. So to me, that's lack of education at the state park, and we've overlooked that. You know what I mean? As far as boating safety, it's not just about out on the lake. It's really, you know, there were two incidents in a row where people came over that buoy line.
I'm a little tired. Is it okay if we convene soon? I'm really sorry, and we're
No,
not
I know,
talking
we're running
about
out of
road
time.
erosion anymore.
Well, all I'm saying is we have to get out to the general public. That's the huge part.
Okay, I think it's fair. We've been meeting for a long time. If it's okay with you all,
Can we just,
I
can I
will-
just throw one thing out?
yeah, throw it out.
Is just into the mix is that I'm not aware, but it's worth checking up if the agricultural extension has any landscaping, you know, thing that they can bring out, handouts, or someone to talk that dealing with this idea of resilience and floodwater. I don't know if they have it, but it might be worth checking.
Okay, good idea. I can do that. Okay, here's what we'll do. I'm gonna try to encapsulate some of these ideas that we've talked about, the date. Charlene's gonna check on this date, being
Yes.
able to use the hall.
We're going with that one date now.
Yep, August 10th. Joe, you're gonna stockpile whatever Rocky Road you can stockpile and keep it cold till August 10th. Right? He's not there anymore. And I'll send around something that summarizes things that I can send to Tamsin. Good?
Sounds good.
Okay. And with that,
You make a motion to adjourn?
let's do it.
Aye.
Oh, someone's got to second it.
Oh,
I'll second it.
Second it. Oh, he shows up for that. No, I'm kidding you, Joe. All right. So your vote, Charlene.
Aye.
Wallace, aye.
Joe.
Moore? Joe is aye.
Yep.
Okay. Jim? Can't hear him, but he says aye. Bob Douglas? He says aye. Tom?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Yes.
And Charlene, I will send you the draft of that document so you can circulate it to the folks. She's gone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Yep. Stop recording.